Bicycle Plan. Deborah.
Good evening, Chair Donaldson and members of the Commission. We're pleased to be back tonight to ask for the Commission's approval of the new Emeryville Pedestrian Bicycle Plan. At the February study session, you heard a detailed presentation, and so tonight we'll do a kind of a summary overview and then discuss the revisions that were made since the last draft. And I'm going to just run through some slides, but I also have Brett Hondorp with Alta Planning and Design here to help field questions and add anything that I might have missed. And then, of course, we're here afterwards to answer any questions and take your comments. So work started on this plan back in 2010, and at the outset there was a whole series of outreach efforts, including surveys, tours, special outreach to the school, to focused public workshops, and the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee provided guidance and kind of an open forum for discussion of the plan along the way. The draft was completed in November 2011, and since that time, the draft has been through extensive committee review. The BPAC provided review and discussion at their November, December, and January meetings, and then approved it for forwarding on. Both the Public Works and the Transportation Committee reviewed the plan in January, and then we had the two study sessions, the Planning Commissions on February 23rd and the City Council study session on March 10th. So here we are at the approval hearings, and anticipate that it will be at Council on May 15th. And you'll recall that there are four major components to the plan: an executive summary, Part 1, which is the first 3 chapters, provide kind of the purpose, the vision, and some kind of existing conditions and basic information. And then Part 2 is really the implementation strategy. And then there is a set of appendices as well. And in Part 1, the 3 chapters are Chapter 1, the introduction. Chapter 2 provides the vision, goals, and policies, and these are largely derived from the general plan, but new policies have been added as well. Chapter 3 describes opportunities for improvement and barriers to pedestrian and bicycle travel, and it also summarizes travel patterns and includes the findings from public outreach exercises. And then chapters 4 through 8 are comprised Part 2, which is the implementation strategy. It includes chapters describing pedestrian and bicycle programs, a chapter on citywide improvements, standards for bicycle boulevards, and then Chapter 7 is the listing of the numerous site-specific projects, and then Chapter 8 are recommendations for funding and implementation. So changes were made as a result of Planning Commission comments at the February study session. There was support for moving the bicycle boulevard that was shown on 45th Street, moving it over to 47th Street in the Triangle neighborhood. There was some rewording of policy P19 to emphasize San Pablo as a green multimodal corridor. And West Oakland BART was added to policy 4.2, which speaks to connections with transit. And then Bay Street was added to the list of areas needing additional bicycle parking. And City Council had some comments as well that resulted in a couple of changes. There was a discussion about safety on San Pablo Avenue, and the City Council was interested that that the city work with Berkeley and Oakland to address safety issues, and so information has been added on that, and a new implementation action to improve coordination among the 3 cities has been added as well. And also the council requested that the plan include provisions for bicycle maintenance stations. These are freestanding units that provide basic repair tools, and they've been used successfully in other cities. So we've included that. Also, in this last revision, there were some refinements made to the costs. So where the draft you saw before was totaling out at just over $60 million, this version has it just under $60 million, so saved a few dollars there. And also the appendices that were wrapped up in your last document have been separated out to be a separate resource document. So as a result of more detailed study of the pedestrian and bicycle systems, refinements are recommended that diverge from what was shown in the general plan. And so amendments are needed to maintain consistency between the bicycle and pedestrian plan and the general plan. And these amendments would result in changes on 4 of the diagrams in the transportation element: the circulation diagram, the street system, the pedestrian system, and the bicycle system. And I'll walk through what those changes are. This is the circulation map of the general plan, and all the changes are included on this plan. And I also want to remind you, in the general plan, being that it's more general, the class 2 and 3 were kind of grouped. Class 2 and class 3 bike facilities were grouped, and whereas in the pedestrian and bicycle plan, they're differentiated. So let's see, starting over here on the west side, the general plan includes a north-south bridge crossing Powell Street here, and a class 1 path continuing north connecting to class 2-3 path further north. And the pedestrian and bicycle plan is recommending that these not be included. The feeling being that that there's been a lot of work and study gone into the improvements of the Powell Street Urban Design Plan, and plus the idea that there would be at some point a bridge crossing the freeway at 65th Street, that these facilities would be expensive and not necessarily needed once you have better connection to the Bay Trail here and here. Let's see. Up in the northern part of town, we have existing bike lanes on 65th Street, and it was felt that that having a bicycle boulevard on 66 wasn't necessary, since we have already adequate east-west connection here. And so the bike ped plan does not include a bike boulevard on 66. So with that being removed, that would mean that we'd have this multi-use path on the general plan map cutting through the block where Expression College is, not connecting to a bicycle facility over here. So the recommendation is that that be pedestrian only. And then over here we have the general plan shows these bike boulevards on 59th and 55th extending east of Doyle Street, and the recommendation is that they not extend east of Doyle because they don't connect with any other facilities to the east, and also both streets have offset connections further east where it crosses San Pablo Avenue. Let's see, and we had discussed the change of 47th to a bicycle boulevard, and the general plan shows this segment of 47th and this little leg of Doyle Street to be class 1 and 2, and the bike ped plan recommends that be deleted, and the reason behind that being that as you saw in the previous study session, there's a lot going on with ECCL in this area, and to have a bike facility going through there as well, we felt would be in conflict, and plus there's adequate facilities on other surrounding streets. And then a small change would be to extend on 45th Street, extend the bicycle boulevard all the way to San Pablo Avenue. And then the final change would be this Class 1 path that is recommended from this Doyle 47th corner here, mid-block over to connect to Hollis Street. And we looked at that a little bit further and realized that it would be problematic in terms of getting easements. There are existing buildings there, and felt that the cost would outweigh the benefits of that. So those are the changes that are recommended in the general plan amendment, and then I'll just go quickly through the other maps so you can see how they play out. So this is a street system map, which includes bike boulevards. So the changes to this map would be the changes that I'd already discussed on relative to the bike boulevards. The pedestrian system would, these are the relevant pedestrian changes. And then the bike system map has these changes. So that's it for the general plan amendment. This plan, this pedestrian and bicycle plan, is covered under the EIR for the general plan. And we have found that the amendments to the general plan will not result in any significant new environmental effects. And so, as a result, no new environmental review is required. And tonight, we're recommending that the Planning Commission approve a resolution recommending City Council adopt the plan, accept the appendices, and adopt the general plan amendment. So that concludes the presentation, and we're here for questions.
I only had one question. What was the discussion from the BPAC and staff when on the change from 45th Street to 47th Street on the Bicycle Boulevard, and how that affects the crossing over, eliminating the Class 1 and Class 2, the crossing over San Pablo and getting over to, I guess, 45th Street? Were they okay with that? Was there consensus?
There was a lot of debate
Yeah.
at the BPAC, but also at the Planning Commission study session. And you may recall that we had the chair of the BPAC here, and then in one regard, having the bike boulevard on 45th is a closer connection to let me see if I can go back and take a look at the map. Is a closer connection to the portion of 45th that's west of San Pablo Avenue, but this is a difficult intersection anyway because it's offset. And so the feeling was that if you have, if indeed at some point we are able to make this connection here, then the crossing here would be better than here. Okay. And also that the street itself, 47th Street, is a nice wide street, and people felt that it was a better street as a bicycle boulevard than 45th.
In that area, we were just, looking at the ECCL plans with the bike lane coming down the west side of the property. That sort of either loses its purpose or I mean, it's going from 53rd over there. If you go down that bike path and go east, you're going through that maze of parking for the school. And if you go down there and go west and south, then you link up to the other bicycle boulevard somehow. So I'm sort of wondering whether that little orange segment should stay in, or whether it really makes sense to have the Class 1 in the middle of that block there.
Right.
The L.
Yeah, the L, because if you use the Class 1 from 53rd down to 47th, then what do you do? Or is that just so that you can get around to the high school without going to San Pablo? It seems kind of
not having.
over.
I mean, if we I keep losing the mouse here. Even though this wouldn't be designated as a facility, doesn't mean you still can't use it. I think. So, and this does provide a, connection to the high school from parts north. Yeah.
Okay.
So question on the general plan update. On the recommended pedestrian improvement map 7-1, we've got the dashed line that shows the future improved connection, kind of just showing conceptually a connection between the transit center and the peninsula. So will that dashed line be shown on the general plan maps also?
It wasn't discussed to make that change with the general plan map.
I'd like it to be, because I think that it's an important connection that should be expressed somehow, and since it is in the bike plan, I think it really should be reflected in the general plan too.
I would just note that the rest of the general plan transportation maps, pretty much all of them, are pretty site-specific in terms of their different facilities that they show. There is one other proposed conceptual facility in the general plan transportation plan, which is a path along the Emeryville Crescent from Powell Street out to the Bay Bridge. That is not shown on the map either, but there is a written policy that says the city will study this thing because of not knowing an exact alignment and other issues with it. So in light of the fact that this line here would be pretty much the only conceptual kind of a line on this map, we might want to consider instead doing the same thing we did for the Crescent path, which is to just put a written policy in the plan that says we'll further explore this corridor. Would they be okay with that? All right, we'll have to come up with some language. Assuming the rest of the commission, or a majority of the commission, endorses that.
I don't. I kind of want to throw this out there and see how the other commissioners feel, but I would kind of encourage I would encourage that policy to be kind of general and that any additional connections across the freeway to the Bay Trail be studied. I know for me personally that is the biggest obstacle to using the Bay Trail is the Powell Street interchange, and I don't use the Bay Trail because if I use the Bay Trail, I access it from the bike bridge up near University because the Powell Street interchange is so terrible. So I think to word it kind of generally, that any new connections be explored or studied, then we're not fixed to a specific project or pathway or anything like that. But it's really getting us to that goal of opening up that end of the Bay Trail.
Any other questions, comments, or suggestions?
Maybe just to add on to what Sean, I agree with what Sean's saying about keeping it open in general, but should we also express that we want to somehow connect the transit? One of my concerns is connecting the transit center and the high-density area on this side, and especially the transit center, with the higher density office buildings and Watergate and the Bay Trail on the other side. So how do other people think about adding something in the policy that talks about connecting to the transit center?
Chair Donaldson, may I suggest that you ask questions and hold the public hearing and then have your deliberations?
Thank you.
Okay, well, any other questions for Deborah? All right, is there anyone in the public wishing to comment on this? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the discussion is whether we have general language or whether we have about exploring possible connections across the freeway, or whether we have specific language speaking about, how would you want to phrase it?
Connecting, the intent of what I want to do, I don't know how I'd phrase it, but the intent of what I would want to do is provide a better connection, a direct connection between the transit center and the higher density stuff. And a direct connection from the transit center to the Bay Trail is one thing, and then to the office towers and the Watergate condos is another, and the open space. So maybe a direct connection to the peninsula, if that's from transit center to peninsula in general terms.
Well, it works pedestrian-wise now because there's sidewalks that go there. We ride our bikes on the sidewalk because that's the only way to get through that junction.
Can I suggest some language?
Sure.
So how about something to the effect of a policy to study additional connections across the freeway to the Emeryville Peninsula with an emphasis on connecting the most dense or high-intensity uses?
I think that's great.
That sounds all right with me.
Okay, so we're adding a new policy to the general plan to that effect.
To the general plan
Study
or to the
additional.
bike plan?
The general plan.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about adding it to the bike plan.
No, this is really to convey the future improved connection dash line on the pedestrian improvement map, to convey that in the general plan.
Well, that strengthens the great need for the Powell corridor to get going, the next phase, so.
Well, let me ask Michael, is there any problem with adding that to the resolution? Get your advice one more time?
We can, as long as we can come up with language that the majority would agree on, there's not a problem now.
So, well, let me read, if I may. I'll read to you the existing policy that we have about the Bay Trail, or the path in the Crescent,
Okay.
that I was suggesting as a kind of a model, and then something I've got here. It says, the city will study, in collaboration with stakeholders and interested agencies and parties, the feasibility of a pedestrian bicycle trail along the west side of I-80, east of the Emeryville Crescent, to provide access from the Bay Trail to the eastern span of the Bay Bridge. So what you're suggesting is similar, I think. What I have is the city will study, and we could add in collaboration with stakeholders and interested agencies and parties, if you think that's appropriate, additional pedestrian and bicycle connections across the freeway between the peninsula on the west and high-density areas on the east. Is that good?
That sounds okay with me.
Is there some redundancy with what's already in the general plan, the statement,
Well,
in terms of the Powell Street corridor?
there's no explicit statement about this particular corridor, I don't
Pedestrian.
think.
Okay.
There, yeah, right.
Well, I think we all want to improve that corridor, and as Vanessa said, it might be a further support of moving those plans forward, so I would move approval with that addition to the resolution.
I'll second.
So that was Chair Donaldson and Commissioner Moss.
Yes.
All right, are you ready to vote then?
Yes.
Yeah? All right, here we go. Commissioner Cardoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Kummerly,
Aye.
Commissioner Moss,
Aye.
Commissioner Sherman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Flores,
Aye.
Chair Donaldson.
Aye.
So the pedestrian bicycle plan is approved by the Planning Commission, and we will forward your recommendation to the City Council. Thank you.
Okay, are there any commissioner comments before we close?
I have, I guess I have one comment. So as Mr. Bryant stated, we, the two of us and Diana Kina were at the National APA conference in Los Angeles, and I just want to share one thing. It's a little bit more appropriate for the BPAC, and I'm going to share this with that committee as well. But I did have I did go to a session on, and it's funny, I went to it because one of our staff members at the City of El Cerrito was on the panel, but it involved state highways as main streets, kind of as corridors through a city, and so there was a representative from Caltrans on the panel as well, and I asked the question about relinquishment of state highways, because that's been something that the BPAC has been really interested in, and has that kind of came up in the discussion of the bike ped plan. And out of that discussion, I actually got the contact of a person. The Caltrans representative that was there said that Caltrans was at least somewhat interested in that. They're interested in it from kind of a jettisoning maintenance requirements on their end perspective. But I was able to get the contact information for someone at Caltrans that actually has been directed to study that for San Pablo. So I can pass that along to staff as something that might be worthy of exploring, just as a way to kind of circumvent some of the requirements that Caltrans has that hinder certain bike and ped and other improvements along that corridor.
Yeah, like signal timing.
And signal timing, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I would just like to say thank you, Michael, and good luck in your next step in your career here.
Thank you very much. It really has been a pleasure to serve with you.
But is Mr. Biddle going to be joining us the next meeting?
That's right. So at your next meeting, Mike will be sitting in this chair, and he'll be he'll be serving as legal counsel to the commission. Yes.
Okay. Well, with that, adjourned. Thank you.
Are we going to?